What's going on, guys? Hope everyone's having a good day. We've got an interesting show laid out for you, everyone. We're going to kind of take a deep dive, not like the people going down the Titanic, but we're going to do an in-depth look at an interesting article that came out from ESPN talking about one move all 32 teams should make, and we're going to see what they had the Browns doing. Now, before we get into that, I just want to give a quick shout out and appreciate and thank everyone who has recently subscribed or who at some point subscribed. At some point, you contributed, if you are subscribed, to getting us to 20,000 subscribers. So honestly, all YouTube cliche BS aside, thank you guys so much. You have no idea how much it means to me, producer Rolly, and everyone else here at Chat Sports for helping us and supporting the channel here. So thank you guys so much. And I want to give some shout outs to those of you who have recently subscribed. You might have been the 20,000th subscriber. I cannot pronounce that first one, but Patrick Harrison, Donald Michael, John Jeffries, Jeff Mosley, thank you all so much. And I also want to give some love to those of you who have subscribed a long time ago, but you have been regulars down in the comments section. Some frequent commenters. There's so many, so I picked 10 of some of the names I frequently see. Dustin Murphy, Darnell Johnson, Joshua Miller, Teresa Reeves, Pat Warland, Emmett Kraft, Kimberly Hurst, Scott Zappa, Gray Koch, Harold Alvarado. Thank you guys so much for always engaging with our content here. I know there are so many more of you guys that also comment, but I only have space for 10 names on the screen. So with that being stated, let's get into today's show and talk about ESPN's one move for the Cleveland Browns. They suggested moves for all 32 teams. And here's what they said about the Browns. The Browns roster once again looks to be in good shape heading into training camp, but defensive tackle feels like an area to address. While the team added a star in Dalvin Tomlinson and a massive run stuffer in Siaki Ika in the third round of the draft, one more contributor to solidify the rotation would go a long way, especially since 2022 fourth-rounder Perrion Winfrey feels like a roster bubble player right now. There are quality options available, including Shelby, Harris, and Ndamukong. You can tell that Fieldy Age just watches the channel because this is not that deep of a take. We have talked about adding another defensive tackle for quite some time, but I really wanted to get into the X's and O's of it. So if you guys are with me here, let's do a deep dive into whether or not the Browns should add a defensive tackle, who to add. We'll look at those last two names that Field Yates mentioned towards the end of the show. But let's just talk defensive line in general. Let's talk shop for a moment. Because the word on the street, the buzz is that when the Browns are trotting out their four top defensive linemen, it's going to be Obo Okoronkwo on the outside, Zadarius Smith actually on the inside, just to get the best pass rushers on the field at once. Dalvin Tomlinson's just your best defensive tackle altogether. And then Myles Garrett, of course, will be a mainstay opposite of Okoronkwo with Zadarius Smith on the inside. Now, you're going to see some packages that have Smith on the outside. But when Cleveland's got a 3rd and 9 on defense and they want to get their best pass rushers, those three players right there, Okoronkwo, Smith, and Garrett, will all be on the field at the same time. Now, with that being said, if you had to grade Cleveland's defensive line before we get even further into today's show, what letter grade are you giving it? A, B, C, D, or F? Last year, I got ahead of my skis a little bit, and I definitely started handing out awards before this defense even played a snap of football. So I'm going to give them a solid B+ right now. I know it's higher, but I want them to earn the A before I give them the A. So for that reason, B+. I know Miles and the rest of the crew are watching, so go out there, put up double-digit sacks, and then we'll give you your A grade. Now, the big question mark right now going into training camp is who's going to get that second defensive tackle spot, right? Or who's going to be the starting defensive tackle or the last one to make it on their roster. I think Dalvin Tomlinson, Siaki Ika are both locks. No matter what, they are making this roster. Jordan Elliott is most likely a lock. They did restructure his contract and move a lot of money from to make it guaranteed to lower his cap hit, which likely means they plan to take him on their roster. But if he has a meltdown during training camp or preseason, he could potentially be moved on from. Perrion Winfrey, if all things go well, should make the roster. He just can't get in his own way. Maurice Hurst, Tristan Hill, Tommy Togiai are all on the bubble. And then Michael Dumafor, who they added in free agency a while ago, he's kind of my odd man out right now. Now, Jordan Elliott is a bit of an enigma, right? Because on one hand, we're talking about the starting defensive tackle. But at the same time, I can't even be that confident that he's going to make the roster just because of how bad he played last year. PFF ranked him as the 118th starting interior defensive lineman. Now, when they moved some money around and guaranteed a lot of his contract, that signals to me they plan on keeping him on the roster. Otherwise, what's the point of guaranteeing some money just to cut him a couple of months later? But he did not show a lot of tape last year to believe he deserves a lock of a roster spot. When I think it's all said and done, here will be your defensive lineman on the Browns. Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Obo, Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, Dalvin Tomlinson, Siaki Ika. They're all locks no matter what. Jordan Elliott, Perrion Winfrey, and I'm going to toss Maurice Hurst on there. So last year, Cleveland took 4 defensive tackles, if you remember. This year, I've got them taking 5 defensive tackles, okay? The only proven defensive tackle on this roster is Dalvin Tomlinson. I would love to see Ika have a really good rookie season and a good camp and whatnot, but if he ends up having a rookie season which is full of growing pains and getting the swing of things, which is not abnormal, you might want to have an extra defensive tackle because as of now, he's probably this team's second best defensive tackle without even playing a snap, which says more about the other defensive tackles than it does about Ika. Now, as for Maurice Hurst and Tristan Hill, these were 2 under-the-radar free agent signings that might be able to, make a little bit of noise. Maurice Hurst has been a longtime player in the NFL since 2018. He just has not always been able to stay healthy. Tristan Hill, on the other hand, second-round pick by Dallas in 2019. Just some character issues, I think, down with the Cowboys. Lack of effort at times. I think Maurice Hurst would be the guy to win the job over Hill and Togiai if Cleveland wants to roll with 5 defensive tackles because they go, well, we like Tomlinson, we want to like Ika, but we haven't actually seen him play with pads on yet. I mean, you don't really learn a whole lot from linemen during minicamp and OTAs when they're just bumping titties. And as for the rest of the defensive tackles, well, we got to wait to see it to believe it. Now, the odd man out here is Isaiah Thomas, a 7th-round pick last year out of Oklahoma, who I thought had a really good training camp and preseason last year. Didn't see a whole lot of him in the regular season, 9 tackles, 1 sack. And this is not a Isaiah Thomas is bad. This is the Browns added so many edge rushers. They found one in free agency, Okoronkwo. They traded for one in Zadarius Smith, and they drafted one in Isaiah McGuire. You probably want to hold on to Alex Wright. So with that and Myles Garrett, you're at 5. Maybe they roll with 6 and try and sneak IT on, but I think he's probably going to be on the practice squad, and Cleveland hopes that no other team adds him. Now, you might recognize the shirt on screen right now. I thought this polo was so awesome. I got it for myself, and if you want to rock one of PD's polos, go to chatsports.com/Browns polo. They got so many great polos out there. Plus, they're on sale. So don't just get one. You can get 2 polos. Keep the rotation. Keep the wardrobe fresh. I'm a big fan of my new polo. It's going to be a mainstay here on the show. Had to add to my collection of Browns gear. So get your own polo. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video. Now, another interesting article came out, this time from Mary Kay over at Cleveland.com. And a mailbag, I think, not quite a mailbag actually, but she talked about the defensive line and the defensive tackle spot. And I wanted to read a little bit to you guys. But Smith, acquired in large part for his ability to rush from the inside, will sometimes line up on the outside, opposite Garrett or Okoronkwo, in which case the Browns will need another top-level tackle to work next to Tomlinson or rotate with them. The Browns will also use 5 down linemen a lot, meaning they'll often have those 4 on the field, as well as another defender based on matchup. So one initial takeaway I had from that is 5 down linemen probably means you're rolling with just 2 linebackers, which would be different from what we saw under Joe Woods. He had some good amount of nickel usage where you take a linebacker off and you add a DB on. Shout out to Brett Favre for not knowing that. But you could see that the Browns with their linebacker room, which is still getting slowly healthy, maybe they wait until all 3 are healthy, and until then, they just roll with JOK, and Anthony Walker is likely ahead of Taki in his rehab. And those are your 2 linebackers, and that's their plan. They don't need to add a linebacker. They're just going to roll with 2 linebackers, right? And if Tony Fields and JOK are the only healthy guys week 1, or Jordan Kunaszyk, they're going to like their 5 defensive linemen to disrupt the offensive line, and there won't be a whole lot of pressure on these linebackers, right? We know that Jim Schwartz loves his defensive line. That has been his calling card in the NFL. If you're a pass rusher, you want Jim Schwartz as your defensive coordinator. He is going to unlock you. He is going to get you your best season of your NFL career. There have been a lot of great players who have played under Jim Schwartz and have had their best statistical season with Schwartz calling the shots, right? Fletcher Cox in 2018, career high in sacks with 10.5. Marcel Darius, 10 sacks in 2014. Mario Williams, the same year, 14.5 sacks. 2 Buffalo Bills players with 10-plus sacks with Jim Schwartz calling the shots in just one season in Buffalo. 2010, Ndamukong, 10 sacks back in Detroit. Now, this has been an ongoing trend for Schwartz as a defensive coordinator or head coach. You look back at his team's NFL sack rankings, going back to his time with the Lions. Started off 29th in year one. After one season, got him up to 6th in the NFL. Kind of regressed a little bit after that, but you can see with the Bills in 2014, they were the number 1 sack getter with 54 sacks. And then 5 years in the city of brotherly love, he did some awesome things with the Eagles. 34 sacks, 38 sacks in 2017, 2018, 44 sacks. And then his last year with Philly, 49 sacks, which was good for 3rd in the NFL. 3 straight seasons there at the end with 40-plus sacks. That would be a big sigh of relief for Cleveland that had Taven Bryant, believe it or not, as their 2nd leading sack player in 2022. I think you're going to have two 10-plus sack players. Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, different former Vikings player. Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Okoronkwo is probably going to surprise some people. I'm not as high on him as maybe some other people are, but I think he can be a 6-sack player. And for Cleveland, you already have 2 top dogs. You'll take 6 sacks as your 3rd leading sack getter. Like, to me, that seems like a pretty good deal. So going back to Field Yates' article, though, to kind of put a bow on today's show, remember at the very end, he mentioned signing Shelby Harris or Ndamukong. So let's take a look at those 2 players and kind of put them head-to-head from what they did last season. Shelby Harris was in that Russell Wilson trade going from Denver to Seattle, and he was really good for the Seahawks. 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, one of the better players according to PFF. Now, Sue was signed midway through the year along with Linval Joseph. He didn't do a ton in the regular season. Philly also had a very deep rotation going. Like, they were constantly rotating bodies up front and in between the defensive ends, but he definitely had a good postseason. The other Browns defensive tackles, Maurice Hurst, Tristan Hill, even if Ika is just looking like a rookie, which is perfectly fine and normal, I think I'd like to add Shelby Harris. Shelby Harris is a really good pass rusher for working on the inside. He's not a 10-plus sack guy. That's perfectly fine. No one's asking him to be that or have that role. But he had like 6 sacks a couple of years ago. So Shelby Harris could be an interesting name to keep an eye on. If August rolls around and Andrew Berry goes, I do not want to make the same mistake of last year. We saw the Jordan Elliott experience. It was not a good experience. It resulted in the Atlanta Falcons running the football 17 straight times and beating us in Week 4. It resulted in the LA Chargers coming to Cleveland with the worst ground game on offense and leaving Cleveland with 238 rushing yards. So if Dalvin Tomlinson is looking like the only guy who can stop the run in between the ends, Shelby Harris would be a pretty good acquisition. Plus, these older DTs, the last thing they want to do is work out in August. I mean, they are big fellas. They don't want to be running up and down the field under the hot August sun. So I wouldn't be shocked if you see a DT get signed maybe later in training camp. But before we get on out of here, should the Browns sign a defensive tackle? Yes or no? For me, I'm not very confident beyond Dalvin Tomlinson and Ika. I'm really not interested in Jordan Elliott starting again. And he's really the next best option, right? Because I don't think it's Togiai. I don't think it's Hurst or Hill. So if Cleveland finds out after one preseason game we have an issue here, then I think they should immediately pick up the phone and give a guy like Shelby Harris a call. Now, some quick notes before we get on out of here. We will be live here at Chat Sports for the NBA Draft. Producer Rolly does an amazing job behind the scenes here at the Browns Report to get you guys videos. But the NBA draft is his baby. So go support him. Check us out here at Chat Sports all Thursday night for both rounds of the NBA draft. YouTube.com/@chatsports. Now, it is pick a card time. Rolly, we still have yet to have a producer get a card right. And as a representative for that crew, how embarrassing is that?
You know, it's a little sad. I was filming a different show when I heard the news of you correctly predicting a card.
King of Diamonds.
That was devastating. It felt like I was just shot with a million daggers inside the heart, that the producers were not able to take home the first prediction correctly.
Jack stands no chance.
Yeah, listen, Lotteray just can't get the job done.
He doesn't know cards.
Doesn't know cards. Doesn't know what it is. So I'm going to hopefully put the team on our back and even up the series at 1 here, because I will be honest, fellas, if PD takes a 2-0 lead, we are never coming back from that. So to tie this series up 1-1 is clearly going to be the 10 of hearts.
10 of hearts, okay. Put me down for the 6 of spades.
Ooh, I kind of like the 6 of spades.
I know,
I don't like that. I don't like that, Jim.
One last cut.
I kind of feel like PD nailed it.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
10 of hearts, 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 10 of hearts.
6 of hearts.
Oh my God.
6 of hearts off the rim. 6 of hearts. Okay. That would have been deadly. Take a 2-0 lead going home, you would have been screwed. All right, we're going to sign off. We'll see everyone later.